Good afternoon. Welcome to this afternoon's Wheelhouse Talk with Dr. Tammy Bourne, owner and operator of Bourne Preventative Healthcare Clinic. The Howenstein Center is excited to bring this talk to campus. My name is Haley Hunter, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all here today. I'm a second-year Cook Leadership Academy Fellow and a senior here at GVSU. I'm graduating in April with a bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences and a minor in chemistry, and I'm fortunate enough to say that I will be attending medical school in the fall. Due to my passion for science and medicine, I am very excited to hear from Dr. Bourne this afternoon. As you might already know, the Howenstein Center's Wheelhouse Talks highlight the philosophies and experiences of leaders from a variety of disciplines, communities, and cultures. These individuals take center stage to share their experiences and perspectives with us all. Their lessons help us to chart our own paths forward and provide a blueprint towards reaching our own goals. The Wheelhouse Talks are a space for reflection and innovative learning. They are a call to arms for anyone seeking positive change, a celebration of human endeavors, and a reminder of the potential within us all. Now for introductions. Mary Eileen Lyon is an award-winning journalist and a public relations professional with more than 30 years of professional experience. She spent 20 years as a television news anchor and reporter working in Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. She worked for the ABC affiliate in West Michigan for 12 years and the CBS affiliate for 5 years. Lyon is currently the Associate Vice President for University Communications at Grand Valley State University, leading an award-winning staff which produces Grand Valley Magazine, handles media, publicity, events, and crisis communications. Dr. Tammy Bourne owns and operates Bourne Preventative Healthcare Clinic, which she joined in 1987 with her husband and clinic founder, the late Grant Bourne. She received her undergraduate degree from Calvin College and graduated in 1986 from Michigan State University College of Osteopathic Medicine. Dr. Bourne holds board certifications in family practice as well as being certified in clinical heavy metal toxicity. She has a special interest in the care and treatment of patients from a preventative and nutritional basis. Governor John Engler appointed Dr. Bourne to the Michigan Board of Osteopathic Medicine and Surgery in 1944, where she served as president from 1999 to 2001. Dr. Bourne accepted 2 appointments from President George W. Bush and Tommy Thompson, former Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. She served on the Medicare Coverage Advisory Committee and for 4 years served on the Advisory Committee on Training in Primary Care Medicine and Dentistry Health Resources and Services Administration. Additional biographies for both of our guests are included within your programs, and on the index cards provided, please write any questions you may have. Now, please join me in welcoming Mary Eileen Lyon and Dr. Tammy Bourne.
Okay, well, I get the great privilege of asking Tammy some questions, and we're all excited to hear her story. And there's a lot of grit and determination and compassion that we will learn about Tammy as she explains to us how she got to where she is today. So, Tammy, let's get started. First of all, there are a wide variety of people in the audience, but some of them are students. They're still picking their path, wondering what they're going to do and how they're going to get there. So tell us how you decided to go into medicine.
I thought about this question as we were talking earlier, and I look back at my childhood, and I do not ever remember a time when I didn't want to be a doctor. My mother was a nurse, and I think she implanted that the medicine gene in me, and I love medicine now. So I'm glad that she did. But it was my father then who said, you know, you can do anything you want to be. Anything you want to do, and you can be anyone you want to be. And he probably encouraged me the most to really push outside the limits of growing up in a real small town in Princeton, Minnesota, and thinking about going to medical school and going away to college. So it was both my mom and dad that did it, but I don't remember. I never had a plan B. If I didn't get into medical school, it was just going to be a long way because I would have had to wait.
And there's that determination for sure. So you picked Calvin. So what was your undergraduate degree as you were steaming ahead?
One of the nice things about Calvin is that, again, I knew from a young girl that I was always going to go to Calvin. And they had a combined biochemistry degree that was specifically for pre-med students. And they had this like 98% acceptance rate into medical school. So it was a good combination, and it was a good choice for me.
So your personal story and your medical career become very intertwined quite early when you're still in medical school. So tell us about your late husband, Grant Bourne, and how he absolutely changed the way you would then go on and practice medicine for all these years.
Sure. I have Michigan State Medical School College of Osteopathic Medicine to thank for introducing me to Grant. In my second year of medical school, I was assigned, each student was assigned to attend a family practice doctor's office 1 day a week. So he was the first doctor to whom I was assigned. So every Friday afternoon, I would show up at his office and follow him around, and it was really one of my first adventures in a medical office, and it was great. And after that, if I had a day off, I would call his office and say, hey, do you mind if I follow you around a little bit more? And so, long story short, we started working together. We got married, and we worked together for 11 years. So we had 2 wonderful children. I have Drew and Alexander are here today. And we had a great time practicing medicine together. And we started in a more of a preventive approach, because just before I got to know him, he had a heart problem. He was 44 years old, and he went into heart failure. And he had something called a cardiomyopathy, which is an enlargement of the heart. He went all over trying to figure out. First, I thought he had Legionnaire's disease, and just went on a search to find out what was wrong. Went to Mayo Clinic, and they said, well, we can do bypass surgery on you, but the heart problem is really this enlarged heart, it's cardiomyopathy. And it's so large that you probably only have a couple of years to live unless you want to look into a heart transplant. And he was the kind of guy that just said, I'm not going to take that. I've got to get back and figure out what it is I need to do to get healthy. So he had a friend who had a more nutritional-minded practice, and he called him and he told him about supplements and some nutritional therapies, and especially an IV that we use as a medication called EDTA. And EDTA is a amino acid that, as it goes through your body, it'll bind some of the toxins in your arteries, and it'll take out the calcification. And sure enough, after a couple of months of treatment, he started feeling better. After 6 months, he was off all his medications. And that's kind of when I met him.
So this was all new to him then too. So he was just
definitely
discovering this. Okay.
Yeah, he had a very traditional family practice. He was chief of staff at Grand Rapids Osteopathic Hospital, and was doing tonsillectomies, and we then started going to seminars and learning about the other options that were out there. As we said, look, we have patients that are just like this. We have to learn these treatments and what options are available to people. And we're talking, this is 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. So it was way before these nutritional treatments were cool. And,
yeah, we were talking about you were cool before Tom Brady was cool.
So yeah, there were just maybe a few hundred doctors at these seminars that we would go to, and there were 2 main groups of doctors that would get together a couple times a year, and we would share ideas, and they would bring in speakers who were doing leading research at the time, and it was fun because we were able to look outside the box that we learned in medical school and see all these options that we needed to get people better.
So were you both totally open to this? He had a motivation because of his own illness. You were young. You were just kind of starting your medical career. So you both were probably at the perfect time to entertain what still some people look at a little sideways.
Sure.
Not nutrition necessarily, but some of the treatments.
Absolutely. And yeah, I got to learn medicine kind of through Grant's eyes, which was a blessing. I still had to finish medical school and my residency and training. I did an internship at the osteopathic hospital, and even in a non-traditional or integrative practice, you still have to know medications, and you still have to know diseases and codes, and so you have to learn both sides of the world of medicine. But we had a lot of fun putting together protocols and treatments that were thought to be cutting edge, but really were based on nutritional science and biochemistry that we learned in medical school.
Now, we were talking, and people don't often go to the doctor until they're sick. And you still are working to change that, to do this preventative medicine, to look at nutrition, to look at what we're putting into our bodies, and to get ahead of it. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, if there's any one bit of advice I try and give my patients or to groups, is that we need to be proactive. Our medical system is set up on a very reactive plan. It's wait until you get sick, and then we've got prescriptions, and we can send you for tests, and we can do surgery, and we have this great system set up for people who are sick. I mean, especially in Grand Rapids, we have some of the best hospitals in the country here, one of the best doctors. But what if we thought about patients differently, and what if us as patients, what if we as patients would look at ourselves and say, hey, my dad had this, my mom had this, I don't want to get it. We know that there are some toxicities in West Michigan air, West Michigan water. We know that there are lots of viruses and bacteria going around or in our world. What if we looked at all these things ahead of time and put together a more proactive approach? If we looked at for example, if we looked at all of our vitamin D levels in the room, I promise you that most of us are really low. Vitamin D is such a simple way to prevent osteoporosis, and many cancers are thought to be caused by nutritional deficiencies like that. So if we all had a proactive approach to our health, I think we could stay healthier longer and maybe save the system.
And you have a graphic to show people about the 3 systems.
Oh, I do.
And how it's up on your screen right now.
Okay, I'm gonna head down here. So when I'm talking about how to get someone better, and a patient will come to me, I have this luxury of I spend at least a half hour with my patients, and especially a new patient coming in, I can sit down and just ask questions, find out where they're headed, where they've come from, what really went wrong. And I try and divide their systems up into 3 different areas: the endocrine system, their neurological system, and their immune system. And I know this is simplistic, and there are lots of other ways to look at patients, but if, let's say, you're a medical or a Grand Valley student and you're under a lot of stress, what happens when that endocrine system is producing a lot of stress hormones? The stress hormones are so potent that they can alter other chemicals and neurotransmitters in your body. They can set you up for, let's say, headaches, sweaty palms. I can tell you about those right now. Tight neck. Okay, so the endocrine system is under stress. The neurological system comes under stress. What happens next? It's easy when you're under a lot of stress, you don't get a lot of sleep. All of a sudden, another stress comes in. It's easy for your body to get a virus and get sick. So people come to me with, many times, all 3 of these systems in stress, out of balance. And if I can find any way to get into these systems, I usually start with the immune system. As we know, 70% of the immune system is in the intestinal tract. So it's the easiest place for me to get in and start making a difference. So if I can figure out if there are any bad bacteria or viruses in the intestine, if I can look at the balance of good and bad bacteria, if I can find food sensitivities that are causing inflammation of the intestinal tract, anything I can do to start stabilizing the immune system gives me an into this body. And so I can stabilize this part first, and then it allows that, the the other two systems a little bit of stability. They still may be out of balance a little bit. All the many of the neurotransmitters that are communicating in our brains start in our intestinal tract. So we've got to get this get the immune system healthy first. Oops, I did that wrong. And stabilize then the neurological system we can stabilize with different nutrients also. Okay, let me see how I did that. Okay, thank you. So now I've got two of these systems stabilized, and I can get people feeling a lot better. The endocrine system is a little bit harder to stabilize because we live in a stressful world, don't we? I mean, it's hard. There's a lot of toxin stress, there's a lot of illness, we have family stress, we have school stress. Just being on time for something can be stressful. So it's one of the hardest areas to treat. However, with all the nutritional treatments out, it's easier to get the endocrine system to work if we've got, again, the right B vitamins and the right nutrition. If we can get those adrenals stabilized, or we can start initiating a stabilization of the endocrine system too. And it's each of these systems, if I can work a little bit in and get them stabilized, then I can start getting a person healthier. So that's kind of how I look at a patient as they're coming into my office. I hope that helps. That makes sense. Oh, sorry.
Speaking of
Does
stress.
that make sense? Yeah. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it makes sense. And you still believe in coordinating with traditional medicine and those kinds of things?
So. Oh, always.
Yes.
I mean, patients come to me oftentimes, they've been to many doctors, they have charts this thick. They've been all over, and some of them have a disease that has been labeled. Some people have just so many symptoms, and all of their systems are not coordinating, and they don't really have a disease. It's maybe in a pre-disease state or something. But no, I always tell people if they're coming in with a cancer, do what your oncologist says to do. Don't come here just for your cancer treatment. No, we have to work with other doctors. I send people to cardiologists and nephrologists and whatever specialty I need all the time. But I don't, it's not all either or.
Right.
It's a work together plan.
So getting back to how your personal life is now intertwining. So Grant is searching for this better, healthy lifestyle. You've got that into your practice, and yet he still passes away when you are now a young widow. You mentioned your two children who are now adults and doing well, but at some point in time they were very little.
They were.
And you were, as I understand it, you were just starting to open this new, larger clinic, and you are left a young widow. So tell us about that time in your life and how you managed all of those challenges.
Yeah, that was not a good time. That was 1998. In 1997, we had outgrown a smaller office. We had a 5,000 square foot office on 44th Street, and we had no room to grow. Our parking lot was always full. So in our life plan and our life dream at that time, we said, we love the way we were practicing medicine. We really want to be the Mayo Clinic of preventive medicine. We want to be known as, a place where people can come to integrate their traditional and non-traditional nutritional therapies. And life just sometimes throws you some curves. So early in the spring of 1998, we were building our new office. My mom was dying of breast cancer. And Grant's mom died suddenly within 2 weeks of each other in the spring. It was a hard time. We were still reeling from that, building our office. Finally get the office done. August 31st was our first day in our new office. A couple weeks later, we had the grand opening. And by October 1st, Grant died. And we were still working on our construction loan. We had not even signed the final document in our new loan for millions of dollars. And I'm sure the bank was saying, uh-oh, what do we do now? I felt sorry for them, but they stuck with me. So we signed the papers, and I had to go to work. I remember one of my staff called. I took a week off work to get paperwork done and make sure Drew and Allie were going to do okay in school. And one of the staff called and just said, "What are you going to do? You're going to come back?" I said, "I've got to come back." I really didn't have a choice. So
Did you ever think I could just stop this and go get a job at the hospital and be stable, or do you always think I'm going to be this entrepreneur in addition to a physician?
entrepreneurialism was the last thing on my mind at that time. I didn't know how I was going to make it. It was tough. Grant was my mentor, my husband, the father of my children, and my partner. And I really didn't know. I didn't know how we were going to do it. But I knew I had to be there, and I knew I had to. And when you look back at a story like that, and I'm 38 years old, and Grant was really the leader of the clinic at that time, you can only call this a story of grace. Because at the time you think, I really didn't know if God had really forgotten about me and thought, how could this be a good time for Grant to die, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't. And yet, every step of the way, then I look back and you can see God's hand in everything and how he just helped me in seeing patients, how he brought patients in, how every day I would show up and say, I don't know how I'm going to do this, Lord, but I know you can. And so grace is my friend, the grace that gets you through these hard times. But when you look back, you can see God there.
Great testimony of faith, and I'm sure, in addition to that, which is the most important thing in your life for sure, did you have friends and supporters and staff people who stood by you and bolstered you and perhaps helped your kids, 7 and 8, I think?
Yeah. Drew was 8, and Allie was just turning 7 that weekend that he died. So that was hard. They went to Dutton Christian School, and the Dutton Christian family was remarkable. And my staff, again, they're incredible. The average length of time of my staff is like 22 years or something right now. So these are people that have been with me for so long, and every one of them was there with me. We made it as a team. There is no doubt God just really held us all together, and we worked together. I couldn't have done it without them, no doubt. There are people that were around me that really helped me.
Do you give yourself pep talks to this day?
Yes, no doubt about it. There were hard times along the way, but wow, look at it and where we made it, and we still are able to help people feel better. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what I love to do. I love to help people feel better. Drew and Allie made it. They're successful, wonderful people. I have a new son-in-law and a wonderful family with me, so thank you.
Yeah. So when did you feel like you could breathe and you thought, no doubt that was a huge mountain to climb. So when did you feel like you had made it through that most trying time?
And I guess that would have been more when Drew and Allie left for college. That it wasn't that I wanted to get rid of them. It was okay. We got that chapter done. Breathing at the office, it's still an adventure. Almost every day, it's an adventure there, because there are so many sick people, and so much of my time is just handling one crisis patient after another. So that's still an adventure that's going on. But breathing, I can leave at the end of the day now and say, okay, we did our best, and we're doing okay.
So along this time, too, you're starting to be appointed to the boards by governors and the president, and your life was very full. How did you balance this? So many things pulling at you at once.
Balance is a moving target, isn't it?
Yes.
For all of us. Balance is prioritizing. If you were to come in my house, you would probably find some dust in the corners. And I had to let some things go. And balance is, priority or my children. another priority was taking care of my employees and keeping that office going. And without God helping me through that, my faith was the biggest priority that I had to focus on.
You are a very hard worker and very determined person as well, which goes into the success that you've seen. And then about 4.5 years ago, you ended up opening another personal chapter of your life.
I did.
Tell us about that.
I waited about 15 years before I got remarried. Then I found a wonderful man, J.C. Heisinger, and we've had a lot of fun adventures together. He also has a wonderful, wonderful message of making the world a better place, his schools and his businesses. So yeah, it's wonderful being a team with him again.
Good team, a lot of shared goals.
Yes.
What's next for you in terms of the Born Clinic?
At the end of the day, I just really enjoy helping people feel better. I do. It is, it's a wonderful job. I get to just open the door for bodies to heal. And that's really what happens. Once I know my medicine is limited and I know my love is faulty, but that opens the door for God to come in and use his unlimited power and his unconditional love to just take over and help these patients feel better, get better. And it's really a joy. It's fun. So we're looking forward to, I hired a new tech guy and a strategic planner to help me look forward with the clinic and what we can do. I love teaching people. I love teaching students. I love teaching patients. So we're going to increase our web presence and just partner with some corporations who are looking to also become more proactive in their employees and trying to get them to take a more proactive approach in their own health. So
like health and wellness programs?
Absolutely. Yep. But I think a health and wellness program, so you can individualize and make it just so special for each patient. And if each patient is healthier and feeling better and working better on the job, the other day I had a patient come in and say, since you gave me this diet prescription, I haven't had one headache. I haven't missed any work. And she was missing more than a day a month just with her headaches. So I think as we look outside this medicine box of always having to label someone and looking for medications to cure, I think doctors are going to start having to look inside our bodies and heal us from the inside out. And it's really fun.
So you've been doing this for about 30 years, you're saying. So I imagine that at the beginning, you found more resistance than you are today from some traditional people who are very comfortable in that box. How is that going? Are you, as you work with MDs and people who have taken a more traditional path, are you finding that it's changed? Are you having greater dialogue with people and working? You're encouraging people to go to cardiologists and oncologists and all the specialists that they might need. So are you finding greater acceptance for going back to nutrition, going back and looking at some, I know you're into supplements and the purity of supplements. Are you finding that getting to be a better relationship?
In many times, in many places and many doctors, yes. I think that there's a place for both. I think that that you might want to have a doctor who works on your nutrition and a doctor who works on heart surgeries. I think when a doctor who does heart surgery, for example, has been through medical school and a residency and a fellowship and has so much knowledge and has fashioned his whole career and time around learning that there often isn't time for them to learn outside their box treatments. And so I think we may have to still learn to get along together. I don't criticize my patients for wanting to go to any particular treatment. There's so much information out there on the internet. So I think we're finding a lot more buy-in from patients than we are from doctors. And that's okay. I don't want to change everything about the way we practice medicine.
You want people to feel better.
I want people to feel better, exactly. And I think there's also going to be some major paradigm shifts coming up. As I said, I think doctors are going to start to look inside the body for healing instead of just outside. I was in a meeting yesterday, and we pulled up some articles that showed up on my computer, and there were 2 articles on making a cancer vaccine, and they were taking samples of patients' tumors, mixing them with some medications and some T cells, and teaching the T cell how to go back in the body and kill the cancer. I think that's going to be a huge paradigm shift from the way that we treat cancer right now. And that is so exciting. And I think stem cells are another way that we are going to change the face of medicine with stem cells. People that are in so much pain, have arthritis. I think the stem cells that are in our own bodies are going to be able to heal us from many of these conditions.
No more hip replacements?
Well, I don't know. No, we're not. We're still going to have some hip replacements, but I bet we don't have as many in the future.
Well, and CRISPR technology and everything else that's out there.
Absolutely. So it's really going to be fun. So patients are able to find out a lot on the internet now, and I want to be a part of that. There was recently a big seminar online. It was called Broken Brains. And I don't know if any of you heard about it, but there were millions of followers. There's a group called the Institute for Functional Medicine. It was an 8-part series, and you can still go online and get it. I think it's brokenbrain.com. But this seminar was a group of 8 different lecturers who talked about what's happening with our brains. So many people come in and say, my memory just isn't what it used to be. And I'm getting headaches. I have this brain fog. There's something that's going on with our brains. And they put together a very informative series on how much of brain function is controlled by our intestines, like I mentioned before, how much a little bit of trauma can change so many of our neurotransmitters in our brain, or the way that those connections are made, and ways to protect your brain, ways to heal your brain. It's really interesting, the new technology, the new science, the new research that's going on. It's really fun to be a part of this.
Well, that functional medicine, you mentioned this to me, and I Googled it, of course, and they have the doctor who did that is at the Cleveland Clinic, which I think raises this to a different acceptable level to some people having it. So there's going to be a merging of a lot of thought, I think, as we go ahead. Well, everyone has different challenges, but we all know that everybody is going to have challenges. So as we wind up this part, we're going to go to questions in a minute. What are some of your pieces of advice for challenge? And we heard that faith is such an integral part. But I also know you probably had some other tools that you were pulling on to get you through the toughest of times.
Yeah. Well, have a family. It's wonderful to have a family that that supports you and loves you. So, thank you for always being there. Thank you, JC, for your love and your support. I know that I'm not home to make dinner very early for you very often. I think you asked about balance. I think that that's important. I think taking care of ourselves is important. All the lifestyle issues that we talk about when you talk about health and wellness plan, you got to take care of yourself. We got to eat healthy. I think being proactive and looking inside and saying, we live in a toxic world. I probably should do some detoxification. I probably should look into seeing what toxins I have and see what infections I have and see what other ways I can get myself healthy. Be proactive. That's probably the number one thing I tell my patient is take control of your health. There are, the way medicine is segmented so much now that it takes someone like yourself to embrace all these different disciplines and find your own path, find out what's best for you.
So you really believe we all can have a lot more control over our health?
I have no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I don't think we all have to be programmed to get what our parents had. or take on the risks of Alzheimer's disease and cancer. I think we can prevent those diseases.
All right, well, thank you. I think people have been writing down questions. Gleaves, do you have some?
We have some. Yes, Dr. Born-Heisinger, thank you so much for such an engaging presentation. It really went into your heart and
Thank you.
the challenges you face. So as a result, all the interesting information that you've provided thus far, we have some really good questions.
Okay.
So one question that's emerged is, to what extent have you found that there are common causes of diseases?
So when I look at those three systems on the board, I have found some common causes. If you're thinking about, let's say we have someone with an autoimmune disease. I'm going to use that as an example. Autoimmune disease is a condition where your own immune system is kind of turned on you. Remember, if you've seen someone with rheumatoid arthritis and their joints are swollen and painful, well, the immune system has come across the joint and said, I don't think that looks right. I think I better kill it. Let's get rid of that joint. It doesn't look like it's supposed to be there. Something wrong. So when I look at patients and patients will come in and tell me what started, it's often triggered by a bad virus, or it was triggered by an exposure to something. Sometimes it's even a stress. But these infections that get in our body that often go made into like a smoldering stage. Instead of your body just killing that virus and getting rid of it, sometimes those viruses get into a stage that they just kind of wait until they can get you down again. When you get down, then they can grab you. Infections, and the other big piece of this puzzle are the toxins that we're exposed to. I know there's so much in the news right now. We've got the lead in Flint. Some of the wells in Grand Rapids now are just as toxic as the Flint water. We know that West Michigan air has some of the highest mercury levels of anywhere in the country. The arsenic in Michigan, in the mid-Michigan wells, is also high. So we are getting bombarded by toxins. And they're everywhere. And our body does not have a good mechanism for getting rid of these toxins. The half-life of mercury in your body, for example, can be 60 years. So once it gets in, it's not going anywhere. We don't have a good mechanism for getting rid of those. So in the quest for getting healthy and staying healthy long term, I think this getting rid of toxins in our body has to be a big piece of the puzzle. We know that there are certain heavy metals, for example, that are associated with cancers. Lead is a carcinogen. Mercury, arsenic is a known carcinogen. Mercury is known to be more toxic to nervous systems, maybe accelerating conditions like Alzheimer's or MS. And again, we know we're getting exposed to these, so we should have a plan that's maybe a monthly treatment that we do some herbals or some nutritional plan that has a detoxification mechanism in it. So we go get our hair done every month. We probably should go get a detox treatment every month. So those are the kind of things that I found long term we need to work on.
Next question is very practical. Based on your practice and on your research, what would you recommend to this audience? The 2 or 3 foods that you should definitely be eating and the 2 or 3 foods you should definitely be avoiding.
Oh. Okay. I'm going to start with the foods that we shouldn't eat. You know already. Look at, I heard her say. I know what she's going to say. So, humans do not digest dairy proteins very well. And I see a lot of disease and conditions that start from people not digesting well. So, if someone comes in and they're having problems in something, I often will cheat and say, I'll bet you $5 you're allergic to dairy, and I always win. So, so I don't really do that. So anyway, we do a blood test that tests for food sensitivities. And I send out someone's blood, and it comes back, and it tells me 100 different foods that are tested, many of the foods that people are eating that are toxic to them. And everyone is very different. So the one piece of advice is get your blood tested. There are foods that are very healthy, but not for some people. I'll give you an example. If I eat corn, I get a headache, but not for 24 hours after I eat it. So I never could figure it out. What was, it was 24 hours later, was it just getting back to work that was giving me this headache? So figure out which foods for yourself are not working right. Sugar, it's probably the most inflammatory food on the planet. Everyone who eats sugar is going to have some downstream negative side effects. Changes our hormone function, your insulin kicks in. For every, I think the statistic is for every 20 points your blood sugar goes up, you get 10% decreased activity of your white blood cells. So your immune system is going to be suppressed. So sugar for sure is one of those foods that probably isn't very healthy. I wish we could have foods that were labeled genetically modified and not. I think that there's some evidence that the genetically modified foods that are modified so that they can put different pesticides on them. I think some of those foods are also going to be a problem for us. The healthy foods, fruits and vegetables, lean meats, stick with the brightly colored fruits and vegetables and stay away from the more toxic ones, the ones that are the toxic maybe meats that are grown with a lot of pesticides and antibiotics, the chemicals on them. I don't think humans do well with chemicals.
So good for everyone who gave up ice cream for Lent.
Absolutely.
Well, that does lead to another question. I mean,
Okay.
we are so addicted to certain foods in our
No doubt.
culture, and sugar's, of course, one of the chief culprits. So how do you help your patients work through this addiction to certain foods so it's more than just a matter of quitting. There's a huge psychological component. And so Dr. Born-Huizinga, what do you do in the clinic for that?
So remember, by the time a patient comes to me, they're already sick. Most patients still wait until they're sick to come in. So if you're sick and you really don't feel well, and I give you a list of foods that when your food test comes back, I say, these are foods that are going to cause inflammation in your body. Inflammation is our enemy. So if you want to get better, these are the foods that you're going to have to stay away from. So people that are sick are more willing to give up the foods that are causing them to be sick. So it is harder with sugar, no doubt about it. It is so addicting. Those taste buds are controlling of our body, and it's hard to get off sugar. There's no doubt. I have patients that say they'll get rid of sugar during the day, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, they're up on their way to the gas station to get that Snickers bar. They're that addicted.
And they're not pregnant.
No.
Well, we have a number of Cook Leadership Academy fellows here, so this is more of a leadership question for you within the medical community. The question is, what challenges do you see confronting the medical community currently, and what should aspiring leaders know in seeking to tackle those challenges?
So if a cook leader wants to be a doctor, it's a great place to be. I think that the leadership role of a doctor in a family, in a community, still is there, and then a doctor leader has the ability to make a difference in their community. I think our job is to be a light to the world, and a light that ignites a faith and something that facilitates patients for getting better. So medicine is changing, no doubt. We talked about some of the treatments that are changing, but the running of medicine, the hospitals, the insurance companies, that's all changing too, and maybe not for the better. I think that the system is open for change for the better, and that these Cook Fellowship leaders that want to be physicians have a wide open space for making positive changes in this world.
And then this question is for people who are not reaching their goals fast enough. So this is also from a college student saying a lot of us are facing rejections, feelings that nobody will really give us a chance, whether that may be medical school applications or internship possibilities. How did you stay motivated to pursue your passion when you have faced rejection?
That's a good question. Going through medical school applications is a tough time. because you send out far more applications than you know you're going to get accepted for, and that is a tough one. I think understanding that we all have a divine purpose. And for me, it was, I told you, I didn't have a plan B. I would just keep applying to medical school until I got in. So the perseverance that comes with that is invaluable. And God teaches us lessons along the way. So you have to kind of enjoy the journey and learn those lessons along the way without getting discouraged, because you know what, it's not easy. Even when you get into medical school, it's not easy. You have a long journey ahead, and it's tough, and it's competitive, and it's expensive, and there's a lot of roadblocks that still can come along. And then life can throw you curveballs too at the same time. You feel like you're finally in your groove, and all of a sudden someone dies or someone gets sick. So you have to persevere, and you have to know that God's got a plan.
And what is this is the 5149 question and decision making. What is the toughest decision you've ever had to make?
Oh, wow. That's a tough question. Oh.
Whether or not to answer that question.
Yes.
I can go to another question.
Okay,
And we
let me
can
think about that
come
again.
back to it.
Yes. Let me
Okay.
think about that one.
This is more of the question from sort of a sociological angle.
Okay.
So have you noticed a disparity between different populations that seek more holistic and natural care that you provide? If so, why do you think this is, and how can you promote it to other populations?
I think there's so much information on the web, and people come with their own biases. And when you're looking at a health plan or a product or some answers for your personal health care problems, you can find almost anything on as far as information on the web, and I don't think it's all good. So being choosy and knowing, I guess, where you want to end up and how you want to get there, you have to look at all the information and look at the sources of where that information is coming from. Because I think there's a lot of people trying to sell things on the internet that maybe don't have unbiased information. So it's just like in our medical journals, I think 93% of all our medical articles in those journals are sponsored by drug companies. So we're bombarded by information that is in some degree biased on many different levels. So you have to sort that out. I think that we just have to look inward and find out what's right for us. Everyone is different. That's why you ask, like, what's your favorite part, or what kind of patient will be coming in, or what kind of help I can give them. And everything is individualized. There's no one answer or no one right plan for everyone. Everyone has to have their own plan and path through life.
So medicine is as much an art as a science?
No doubt about it.
Okay. Well, that's actually a segue to the next question. There's no doubt that technology, the internet, allows patients to gain their own medical knowledge to some extent, even if it's bad knowledge.
Right.
And they learn about their bodies in this way. But do you ever find that all the information on the internet and technology actually hinder the doctor-patient relationship?
Yes, but I don't think it's a patient's fault. I think it's the doctor's fault. I think that many doctors are confronted and feel like their patient is being confrontational when they come in and say, hey, I've read this and I've read this. And I've had patients come in with page after page of questions saying, hey, I read about this. And I mean, some of the stuff that's out there is beyond my set of or my knowledge set base. So I think that doctors have to be open to patients looking up their own healthcare problems. And some doctors just don't like that. I know my patients have come back to me saying, my doctor told me if I was going to look up that on the web that she didn't want to be my doctor anymore. And I think that's wrong. So it's probably more of a doctor problem than it is a patient problem.
Okay. Well, now, in addition to your work instituting health and wellness programs, what other opportunities do you think are out there for collaborations? Collaborations that perhaps you have sought within the broader community to make the shift from kind of a reactive to a preventive, proactive medical practice?
Someone who has a stake in the game of helping people get better. If we wait till insurance companies pay for the treatments that we need, it's just probably not going to happen. Unless you have a stake in the game. Like when we've been talking to corporations who look at how they can make their employees healthier, we're looking mostly at corporations who have employees that work for 20 years or more, because it's worth putting some money into an employee who's going to be there a long time. And in this very transient world that we live in, most insurance companies really only look about 6 months ahead. They're looking at the bottom line, how they can give their shareholders a positive report in 6 months. They're not looking long term. So that's one place that I have seen where a good collaborative effort can go. So, and you're just going. I think patients are going to have to take this and again be their own best advocate and look at what they're going to need to be healthy, because it's been estimated that every dollar put into prevention can save $100 down the road. And if we looked at this ahead of time as a medical society, as a community, we could be saving this system. We're talking about Medicare that is, and Social Security that's going broke, and how are we going to heal everyone? Well, we've got to look proactively. So,
Well, this is one of the most important leadership questions that I could ask coming from the audience, and that is, what do you want your legacy to be? Say, project 20, 25, 30 years into the future. You've had this practice. You've impacted an awful lot of lives. What's the legacy that you want people to know about Dr. Born-Huizinga?
I would like people to say about me that she cared about how I felt. She cared that when I left her office, that I was interested in getting that patient better. As I say earlier, the joy at the end of my day is helping someone feel better. And I just get a kick out of someone will come back to me and then the next time I see them and say, you really helped me. I've been back to church. I've been able to be more active with my family, and that's a joy. So I would like to change the world. I would love to be able to make a difference and make an impact globally and get everyone to be proactive. But I think I do better helping one patient at a time. And that's what I love to do. I love helping, sitting in a room with someone and just saying, okay, let's figure this out. Let's figure out where this went wrong. And I think, actually, let's go back to your question, what was the toughest decision? Was probably going to medical school. And as I look back now and knowing that I had to go into to debt, and I had to go, I was in a community far from my family, and stay in Michigan, and even though I knew I had to go, staying in Michigan and going to Michigan State was a big decision for me. So I'm glad I did change my life.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please give Dr. Born-Huizinga a hand.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Also give Mary Eileen Lyon a hand.
Yes. Thank you, Mary Eileen. Oh, thank you.
She knows where I live. You know, I've done a lot of studies of leadership. I've asked a lot of people, what is leadership? I don't think that there is a satisfactory textbook definition of what leadership is. But you know what? To borrow Potter Stewart, the Supreme Court Justice's definition about something else, we may not be able to define leadership perfectly, but we know it when we see it. And I want you to just take account of what you saw this afternoon on this stage. You saw courage. You saw intelligence. You saw perseverance. You saw vision. You saw faith. You saw strength and energy and confidence in pursuing a dream. And that's the kind of thing that is more valuable than any textbook definition you can get about leadership. Carry that away with you when you walk out of this room. It's not in a book. It's in the presence of somebody who practices it. And you know it when you see it. So to you aspiring leaders, this is the ideal kind of wheelhouse talk that when Ralph Hauenstein wanted to set this kind of thing up, years ago when we talked about this, Ralph, who knew leaders, as we say in Texas, I guarantee you, he knew leaders when he saw them. And this is exactly the kind of program that he wanted you to be inspired by and to take from here. So thank you for coming to the Wheelhouse Talk. Thank you for being part of this incredible program. Thank you, Tammy, for sharing your expertise, your strength with us.
Thank you.
I know I'm inspired, and I think there are a lot of other people in this room who are walking away inspired by your story. Thanks so
Thank you very
much.
much. Thank you.